What did PM Modi tell President Donald Trump on a 35-minute phone call? What were the important bold messages given by the India? Are we changing our stance in the global order with this phone call? The 35-minute phone call between President Donald Trump and PM Modi is all over news. But what is not in news that this is the new form of India's assertive counter-terrorism diplomacy, where we are changing the stance of our diplomacy and we are being clear that we are not victims, rather we are active responders against terrorism. And this phone call has clear message for not just global citizens and Indian citizens, but also for the global order that India is not going to tolerate terrorist acts and terror acts, and we will be responding to it and we will be deterring against it beyond conventional wars as well. So let us try to understand the messages that were here and what are basically they are implying. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Simplified. My name is Shubhangi Singh and let us start with understanding the messages and implications that India and PM Modi stood for on this call with President Donald Trump. The first thing that came out was that Prime Minister highlighted Operation Sindoor as a clear global statement against terrorism, where he has clarified that the stance of India in terms of Operation Sindoor is that this is was a one-time thing, rather it is going to be a continuum doctrine that we have to understand. The implication from this particular message that came out was that India is clearly trying to showcase its proactive counter-terror strategies to the globe, and as I mentioned that Operation Sindoor should not be seen as a singular event, rather a continuing doctrine that India will practice against the terror groups and terror acts. Now talking about the 7-party diplomatic outreach program that was taken out to rally the international support. Now when we talk about Operation Sindoor being talked about on the call, it was not just about asserting the counter-terrorist strategies and measures that we are taking, but also rallying global support, international support, where we are focusing on strategic use of geopolitical platforms groupings so as to rally our message. For example, just like when very similar to how President Zelensky was trying to use platforms such as G7 for support of his cause in terms of Russia-Ukraine war, be it for security, be it for arms, or be it for relief packages. So here we are also trying to strategically use the global support we can get. Apart from that, this particular message also implies that India is going to focus on setting the narrative. This phone call just before the meeting of US President and Asim Munir from Pakistan marks the timing of Indian diplomacy and also marks that how strategically we are focusing on setting the narrative in right direction and well in time as well. So all in all, the message that can be taken up from this particular key point is that India won't remain passive to any sort of terror attacks, and we are going to come out in open and go beyond boundaries and go beyond conventional wars to address this particular problem. Another key message that was given from PM Modi was that this is not a proxy war anymore. Terrorism and we against it is a full-fledged war. So Modi has clearly declared that we are against terrorism and this is not a proxy war anymore, rather it is a direct conflict or war. And this directly signals the fact that there is going to be a shift in India's strategic posture. We are not going to be passive about it. There will be direct and strong measures which will be taken against terrorism and strong retaliations will be seen. And Operation Sindoor, as I mentioned, it is basically going to be a continuing doctrine which we will see in the upcoming steps that would be taken from side of India. It also reinforces the political consensus that we see in India, especially in context of anti-terror measures that we are talking about. And another very good example is all party delegation that went around to garner international support. So the political consensus as well in our country stands firm on this ground and in the direction of anti-terrorism. The next message that came out was that there is no mediation required. India does not want US to meddle in. This is a clear red line that has been shown from our end, that US does not and has not and will not mediate. And PM Modi has again rejected mediation by US in the tensions that have been in the past, be it in 2019, be it in 2021 and again in 2025. Since Shimla Agreement of 1972, we have not seen external interference or external mediation. We remain responsible for our regional matters and we want to hold sovereignty, and this was clearly passed through PM Modi to Donald Trump, that we do not require your interference to handle our own matters. In this particular context, India has clearly asserted its sovereignty in bilateral and regional issues that lie in front of us. India has clearly drawn boundaries with US, that as much as we talk about strategic partnership with you, you are an ally and you are an important partner, but these are our internal matters, bilateral matters, and you don't get to interfere. And India has also reinforced its long-standing policy, especially on Kashmir, since 1972, which has that there will be no third party which will be involved. This has clearly sent a firm and direct message in terms of diplomacy that India will not compromise on its strategic autonomy as well as sovereignty in terms of regional as well as bilateral matters. And then moving on to the next message that we have, that the back channel talks with Pakistan went through only military channels. So now and then President Donald Trump has taken onto social media platforms to announce that how he has helped India and Pakistan, how he has mediated the tensions between India and Pakistan. But herein the clarification came that whatever communication happened between the two countries was not through an external reference. Here it was directly between the military level DGMO and it was through military channels. So the communication that happened between the countries, it was between army to army and direct, and it was also clarified that this happened at Pakistan's request. It was not initiated by India, it happened at Pakistan's request. Now this clarification and key point also helps us to understand the fact that India has been clear on the usage of institutionalized frameworks and it does not operate as per international pressure. It will focus on the framework and measures and mechanisms in place rather than going by international pressure that is going in a particular direction. It also shows that India is mature enough in handling the de-escalation, making sure that de-escalation without any external interference, and it also clearly acknowledges that whatever be the level of aggression that we are following, we have kept the channels of communication open so as to ensure that whatever steps we are taking, they are in as per the institutionalized framework. India has also been very clear on this call that whatever measures and Operation Sindoor, they were non-escalatory, they were precise, and they were not against the people of Pakistan rather than against the terror groups which are state-sponsored and present in the territory of Pakistan. And the last important message that we can see from this phone call, that PM Modi declined his US stopover, citing his scheduling concerns. That clarifies the fact that here India stands strong on the fact that we do not need symbolism, we need our strategic interests to align. So if you are not standing by our side, and if you are sending misinformation by the fact that you are the one who has been responsible for the mediation, then we would need to look after our own strategic interest on our own. And this decline, polite decline that has been seen by PM Modi for a US stopover also has clear implications, such as it highlights India's confidence and equal-footed diplomacy, that we do not want to be undermined, we do not want to be considered subordinated in any particular matter, and we are going to look after our own interests accordingly. It has not been the first time that India is departing from its ally US. For example, when we talk about sanctions on Russia, during the Russia-Ukraine war, India departed from the stance US was taking into a different direction. And all these incidents clearly highlight that India is moving towards a multi-alignment policy where they are connecting to the like-minded countries, to the like-minded interest, and they are keeping the fundamental of foreign policy in their mind, that there is no permanent friend, there is no permanent enemy, rather just permanent interest. And India is showing that India is going to engage with global powers without any symbolic dependency, which could have been shown with this particular stopover. Now, these messages from PM Modi that have been part of the conversation with President Donald Trump are clarification, or are the clarity that has been required by the global order as well as the Indian citizens in terms of how India is changing, not just about its anti-terrorism stance, but also about how it is going to align with countries and organizations in the global order in terms of its interest. Now, that was all from my side. Now I have a question for you. Do you really think in the long term US is going to align with Pakistan and move away from India in this particular context? You have to remember that it is again President Donald Trump who re-emphasized that it was him who has stopped the war, and he was part of the mediation, and he stopped almost a nuclear war. But this messaging from our Prime Minister makes it clear that yes, it was done by India, and the mediation was happening through strategic autonomy and sovereignty that we practice in bilateral matters. That was all. Thank you so much.